Let's see. Shoot. We'll call it a statement of purpose. Okay, everybody ready? Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and guide us during this great period of transition. We thank Allah for His blessings. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for straightening the road. More than that, we thank Allah for just having some association with Islam during this period. We said today's talk was a statement of purpose, and statement of purpose. We won't spend too much time on statement of purpose. Of course, we should be going back to Oakland soon. I was going to leave tonight or tomorrow, but maybe I cannot. You're going to be, how many days you going to be here? Saturday. To Saturday. Are you going to have any free time? Or, okay, maybe I'll leave Wednesday then, something like that. Okay. We all know about the re-Africanization of the Islamic movement in North America. That's a reality. Today we won't go into the reasons for it, but it's been necessary because the Islamic movement in North America has clearly been taken over, quieted down, and sissified. And so the re-Africanization of the Islamic movement in North America is a necessity. De-Israelization of the Islamic movement in North America means that the Muslims should get to an agenda that speaks the reality about Islam. And College of Islamic Movement Studies is something that we need in order to teach people, for instance, if some of our goal is to establish 25 to 50 masajid. Well, we've been through the period of, we've been through 3 cycles of establishing masajid. They up and rolling, everything is running smooth. I would say we've had as many as 10 masajid, and we've had as many as 8 of them running full speed at one time. But the only one where we fully owned and everything was here and in Oakland. All the time we knew what was going on. We knew about, we talked about LA. We had 2 joints going there. One, the Sunnis, so-called Sunnis, and right around the corner, we had headquarters, which was probably the best organized Shia community since the revolution. The same brothers that was over there, yeah. You could tell they were mixtures of everything. Big time. Okay, but all of it at its time, since they were saturated with agents and government people, every time they automatically, which we expected, they would basically just close down and get up and walk away. As simple as that. That's been going on. Infiltration, sabotage, agent provocateurs. So we're going to teach our people in the College of Islamic Movement Studies, that's courses in historical study of various Islamic movements, their influences and their impact on society, in which students will examine their messages and their missions and learn how to translate their knowledge and experience into the useful format for application in today's world. So, that's strategic management also under conditions of repression, where we will teach from a basis of 35 years of experience or more in the Islamic movement. So this College of Islamic Movement Studies, this Department of Strategic and Islamic Studies. This department will focus on analysis of world events and situations affecting Muslims, forecasting based on historical trends and current environmental circumstances, and strategic planning based on what should be done to make the world a better place. Okay. So basically, our statement of purpose is we're going back to Oakland this week, inshallah. And we're going to crank up. And we're going to do the things that's necessary for our own personal property, for the Masjid, and we're going to skip over all the formalities, but that's what we're going to do. It don't make no difference. That's what our plan is, and we don't care what the system like it or not. But in order to go to where we had planned to go, we had to do some preliminary work. One of the preliminary works is that we put a check on the United States government. What do you mean? We have rights as human beings in America. Let's call them constitutional rights. As we all know here, the federal, state, and local governments just drive over our rights all the time. We've been knowing it all along. And we had to play them out of pocket to get them to show their behavior publicly. Now, showing their behavior publicly would do several things. One, it would show that the government is using everything that they got in their arsenal against us. Now, when the big bad monster do that, and we survive, and we thrive on that, then that shows the people they don't have to be afraid of that monster. We've already done that. We've taken care of that. Those are our goals from the very beginning. In other words, everything that's happened in the last several years, or even farther back than that, has been under our steam. Part of today, I'm going to explain a little bit about what we're talking about designing your own future. If anybody remember 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we was heavily into designing your own future. Global redesign for the 21st century, right? And we talk literally almost every week about writing your own future. If you want to read a book, you write the book, right? If you want to live a life, you write the life you live. You want to live. That's possible. I'm only saying it because of, from experience. We know the documentary on the Oakland story. We call it From Stalingrad to Oakland, and we here knows what that means. Stalingrad was a turning point in World War II. It was the biggest battle, and over 1 million people died in that one battle, and Russia itself lost 27 million people in World War II. And if we were to read Western history, we all thought D-Day was the great invasion when they had D-Day, you know, June 6, 1944, The Allies, if you just take an overview of world history from the Western point of view, you would think that the United States in Europe won World War II, right? It's not so. 5 out of 6 Germans killed during World War II was killed by Russians. And that invasion of Russia by Germany was called a great success. Till a year or two later, it was the greatest tragedy ever visited on Germany. And it was visited by Russia. Russians treated him the same way they treated Napoleon. Masjid al-Islam is the Stalingrad of this great modern struggle. And I'm going to start with some friends of ours, and we're going to recognize what we're talking about as we go along. Today, in the newspaper, what is it here? Let's see if we can find it. This is Awaz. Awaz, they say 25 people killed. Yeah, at least 25 are killed in military parade in Iran. That's today. Today's the 23rd. Yesterday was the 22nd. The 22nd was the 38th. Yes, it was the 38th anniversary of the beginning of the war with Iraq. Iraq invaded Iran on September the 22nd, 1980. 2 days ago was Ashura, 3 days ago, was Ashura, the great celebration of the King of Martyrs, Imam Hussein. Yeah. Now don't get me wrong. In another 37 days, if you think it's a big show last year, year before, if you think 22, 26, 30 million people at Najaf and Karbala for Arbain was big, wait till this year. Okay. Everything that looks bad is not bad. What I'm going to talk about, I had a discussion with one of the great Negro historians. No, he specializes not only in Negro history, but Sunni Shia history. He's probably the best Negro on Shia history in the world. He's better than the Shias. So much so that people think that I used to watch him, and I used to watch the Iranians years ago. They'd ask him, what are we going to do? They're from Iran. This is during the early part of the war. So, one thing is clear. Iran, number one, mobilized all functional friends. USA, Zionists, and Saudi Arabia, clearly an open warfare against the Islamic Republic. So now, Iran was taking it easy because there were some things that needed to be done. Now those things are all done. And I'll try to explain what I'm talking about. The U.S. and everything has, they took the MKO Munafiqeen off the terrorist list. The British still have them. Munafiqeen went from, in 1986 or before, they migrated to Iraq, and Saddam Hussein took care of them. And their last outpost was Camp Ashraf in Iraq. And when the U.S. invaded Iraq, that put the Shias in control, so the Munafiqeen had to go. Same time, the Munafiqeen are the ones who, Rajavi and Mariam and all of that bunch, they're the ones that have been bombing and killing Muslims in Iran since the beginning of the revolution. And they were sad that the Muslims took over, and so they wanted to be a source of fitna, which they have been. A lot of the information and a lot of these guys, even in this last killing, may have had some association with Munafiqeen. They call themselves Mujahideen Khalq. This is very important. Rudy Giuliani supported them. Everybody in the West supports them. They've tried to set up Iran in many cases. But that's the thing about creating your own historical process, where you might sacrifice certain lives in the beginning, but in the end, you save lives. There was something that needed to happen a few years ago. In fact, we talked about it here. I think I passed this stuff out to y'all. If you remember, everybody remembers this old one, and that was Israeli influence. The date, it comes from the backside, 4/16/11. This was in demonstration, hands-off Libya demonstration in 2011, before they invaded Libya. What we said, it would be a protracted struggle. Step number one, get that in mind, this long-range struggle. Forget about instantaneous victories. Number two, I think, did I pass this out to y'all, a little handout? This one right here? Okay. Number two, okay, now, number two, step one, destabilizing. There'll be a destabilizing effect going on in the so-called Middle East. Step two, it would be temporary transformation. Temporary. They was calling it the Arab Spring and all of that. Everybody remembers what we said. Ain't gonna be no Arab Spring. Forget about that. That's what we said here the minute they start talking about it. Ain't gonna be no Arab Spring. Step number three, organizing of unity, of opposition, semi-consolidation. Number four, regional vision. Number five, or step number five, victory. Now, we've seen that in the Middle East, sitting right here looking at it. We've seen these in this 2011, we have seen these exact same steps. Number one, they had temporary flash in the pan in Tunisia when al-Nata came back from Europe, and temporary wave of freedom in Tahrir Square in Egypt. And street prayer and all those other Uncle Toms went over to Tahrir Square and calling me because we said there will be no Arab Spring. The street prayer and another big-time tattletale snitch and stooge from Europe, old friend of ours, they called me saying there is an Arab Spring going on. They called me from Tahrir Square. I say, ain't no Arab Spring. So you can, and don't call me no more. That's what I told them about Arab Spring. They're trying to convince me about it. So what happened? Temporary flash in the pan. Does anybody remember what we said about the Muslims? Ikhwan, don't take power. All of our books before said the power of Islam to take power. At that point, we said don't take power. It's a setup. It's a setup. Why don't take power? Because you can't fix anything. If you go out all alone and take power, all the problems for the last 50 years that it caused to get like that, they're going to blame it on you. They're going to give you 2 weeks in power, and when you can't fix it, they're going to say, you look at all of this stuff, the problems, you haven't fixed nothing. Well, number one, couldn't nobody fix it. But worse than that, if you brought the Salafis in, if you brought the Christians in, and if you brought the other Islamic organizations in, I'm talking about Egypt, then y'all all that, we are the team. So if it goes right, everybody get a little bit, so we're doing this together. If it goes wrong, you got to blame it on everybody. And if the Israelis are sitting back there with the United States behind them, right, and all their agents in Egypt ready to do what they tell them to do, let's say they got only 500,000 agents in Egypt, but whatever they are, they in spot. The Kwan came over here and told the United States government, no man, we're going to be good moves and we ain't going to be no trouble. But you just remember what our lectures were. Leave them white folks alone. Stay out of it. They didn't listen to us. Because, number one, because we're niggas. That's fine. Don't bother me. You want to get your head blown off? We're going to tell you they got a gun pointed at your head. If you say they're nice people, well, you get your head blown off. But I'm getting out from around you because I don't want no ricochets and nothing blowing me up. All right. Now, that took place. Now, organizing unity of opposition. How is that going to happen in the Middle East in 2011? What do you mean, unity of opposition? Everybody is looking at that and says, this nigga is talking crazy. He don't know what he's talking about. But the only thing was, within a couple of years, we got a strategic alliance, right? Between Iran, between Iraq, between Syria and the Soviet Union, organizing what? The unity of opposition. This is 2011. What is that? That's forecasting.